What if everything you saw about Mars was an illusion? If the images NASA shows us were not exactly reality, but rather an edited version of what is actually there? It sounds crazy, but some evidence suggests that photos of the red planet could be very different from what we imagine. Is NASA hiding something from us? Or is there a scientific explanation behind these images that seem manipulated? Before you answer, take a good look at these photos. Here's an official image of Mars, ... Okay. And here's the same photo after color adjustments. Noticed anything strange? Why do some images appear completely red while others show a blue sky? What is being changed? And, more importantly, why? If you think you've seen everything about Mars, think again. Independent scientists claim that the manipulation of colors in NASA images may be making us believe in an arid and inhospitable planet. But what if the truth is different? Some analyses suggest that Mars may be much more similar to Earth than we imagine. Is NASA protecting some secret? Or is this all just a misinterpretation? This is not the first time that the space agency has been accused of hiding information. Since the beginning of space exploration, there have been reports of astronauts seeing inexplicable things and images that simply disappeared. But what is really happening? Are we seeing Mars as it is, or just as they want us to believe? Now, imagine for a moment that these images hide something much bigger. What if Mars' atmosphere wasn't as thin as we're told? What if signs of life had already been detected but never revealed to the public? This would explain why so many missions seem to find anomalies on the planet's surface. But before drawing conclusions, let's analyze the evidence. What do we really know about NASA image processing? Is there a legitimate reason for these changes, or are we being misled? You might be surprised at what you discover now. What if I told you that this could be one of the most important pieces of information you've ever seen about Mars? That perhaps everything we know about this planet is being carefully filtered before reaching us. The more we investigate, the more questions arise. And now it's up to you to decide. Accept what is shown or question what may be being hidden. The truth is that NASA controls all images that reach the public. Each photo goes through extensive processing before being released. But to what extent are these edits just technical tweaks and not intentional manipulations? Are we facing a great revelation about to be discovered? Or worse, are we being kept in the dark while something much bigger happens far from our eyes? And that's why you need to stay informed. If there's one thing history has shown us, it's that secrets always come to light, but only to those who are willing to question them. And here, on this channel, we go deep into the investigations, bringing you everything that the mainstream media doesn't talk about, exposing documents, theories, and facts that can completely change your view of Mars and space exploration. Now, before we dive further into this analysis, I need your help. If you want to continue receiving content like this, leave your like right now. This helps spread this information and prevents it from disappearing in the algorithm. And more. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because in the next videos we will reveal even more hidden secrets of NASA. After all, if there's something they want you to don't know, that's exactly what we're about to discover. The images we see of Mars come to us through highly advanced space probes, such as the Curiosity, the Perseverance, and the Opportunity, all sent by NASA to explore the Martian surface. These robots are equipped with state-of-the-art cameras designed to capture every detail of the red planet's soil, atmosphere, and rock formations. But here's the question few ask. Are these images 100% authentic? Or could it be that, before reaching the public, they go through a process that could completely change the perception we have about Mars? To understand this, we need to analyze how these images are captured and what happens to them before they are released. Unlike a common photo taken by a cell phone or digital camera, the images recorded by probes on Mars are not simply photographed and sent to Earth. What happens is a more complex process that opens room for manipulation. Rovers have multiple cameras, each with specific purposes. Some capture color images. Others work only with shades of gray, and some record the planet in light spectrums that the human eye cannot even see. And here comes a detail crucial: the colors we see in images of Mars are often not the planet's real colors. NASA processes these images before making them public, adjusting brightness, contrast, saturation, and even replacing colors to better represent the Martian environment. But this raises a big question. Why make these edits? The official justification is that this helps scientists better analyze the composition of the soil and atmosphere. However, there are those who believe that this addition goes far beyond what is necessary, creating a Mars that could be very different from its reality. Many of the original images, also called raw images, are available in the NASA database. If we compare these raw photos with the edited versions that appear in documentaries and official websites, we can notice differences. Surprising, some independent researchers have found that when applied filters are removed, the sky on Mars may appear more blue than red, and some formations on the ground are very reminiscent of terrestrial landscapes. But why would NASA maintain this illusion of a completely red and desert planet? The space agency's argument is that color adjustment serves to standardize images and facilitate scientific analysis. However, many people believe that there is something much bigger behind these changes. If Mars had an environment more similar to Earth than we imagine, that would completely change the way we view space exploration. And there's more. Some edited images appear to have been treated to hide anomalies. Rocks with strangely geometric shapes, shadows that don't make sense, and objects that don't seem to belong to the natural environment of Mars. Could it just be camera glitches or something much more intriguing? Now, think with me. If NASA is willing to alter the colors and details of images that reach the public, are there other things being hidden? Are we really seeing the real Mars? Or just a convenient version manipulated to maintain a narrative? This brings us to an even more intriguing question. What else could be hidden in these images? If you're enjoying this type of analysis, I want to hear from you. Do you think NASA's images are really faithful to the reality of Mars? Comment below. I want to see the real photos. If you also want more transparency about what really happens in space exploration, your comment is very important to keep this discussion alive and ensure that this content reaches more people. And stay tuned, because now we're going to dive even deeper into this mystery, analyzing the most controversial evidence and the secrets that NASA may be hiding from us. If we look closely at the images released by NASA, we can notice something intriguing. Many of them appear to have been manipulated, or, at the very least, tweaked in a way that distorts the true appearance of Mars. But to what extent is this editing just a technical improvement? And where does the possible intentional manipulation begin? This is a question that many researchers and space exploration enthusiasts have been asking themselves in recent years. And the answer may be much more complex and alarming than we imagine. First, we need to talk about the suspicions that some images of Mars appear to have been digitally generated, as if they were CGI, computer-generated imagery. If we compare certain officially released photos with other images of planets, or even terrestrial landscapes, we can notice a strange artificiality in some of them. The ground looks overly uniform. Shadows don't always make sense. And in some cases, even details like rock textures look dull, strangely polished, as if they had been created by computer graphics. And this brings us to another important question: the anomalies found in the images. There are several photos taken by NASA rovers that show shapes in the Martian soil that simply shouldn't be there. Some stones look strangely carved, with shapes that resemble objects made by intelligent civilizations. Others show shadows that defy the laws of physics, as if the light was coming from multiple directions. Something that shouldn't happen on a planet where the only source of direct lighting is the sun. But perhaps most intriguing of all are the images that seem to suggest the presence of mysterious structures or even traces of something that may once have been life. In some photos, we see formations that resemble pillars, domes, or even cave entrances. Some of these images were widely debated on the internet and were even discarded by NASA as pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon that causes us to see familiar patterns in random forms. But can all these coincidences really be explained as just optical illusions? Or is there something more to these images? And here comes an even more shocking fact. There are records of images of Mars that, when compared to previous versions, show unexplained changes. Some areas appear to have been erased, smoothed out, or even replaced with new versions, as if they were trying to cover something up. This happened, for example, with a 1976 image captured by the Viking 1 spacecraft, which revealed a structure that became known as the face of Mars, located in the Cydonia region. At the time, the photo showed what appeared to be an immense human face carved into the surface of the planet. For years, this image has generated numerous theories, with some suggesting that it could be an artificial construction left behind by an ancient civilization. However, years later, NASA released new images of the same region, but this time with improved resolution, and the supposed face no longer looked so defined. The agency claimed that the first image had been just a play of shadows, and that with the correct lighting, there was nothing there but a natural formation. But many people wonder, did NASA really obtain a higher quality image, or did it simply delete a detail that could change our understanding of Mars? And it doesn't stop there. Other photos taken over the years show even more enigmatic details. One example is an image captured by the Curiosity rover, which shows something that resembles a door carved in the middle of a rock. The shape is so symmetrical that it is difficult to believe that it was formed naturally. Another image, taken by the same rover, shows a shiny cylindrical object sticking out of the ground, something that resembles a piece of metal. NASA argued that it could be a lighting effect or an unusual geological formation, but that hasn't stopped theories from emerging, suggesting that it could be a remnant of an ancient Martian civilization or even evidence that Mars has been visited in the past. And then comes one of the biggest questions. If these photos really show something anomalous, why doesn't NASA investigate further? Why is it that whenever something strange appears on Mars, the answers are vague and generalized? It's as if there is an ongoing effort to keep the public away from the possibility that Mars is not just a dead, uninhabited planet, but rather a place with a much more complex and possibly hidden history. Now, stop and think. How many images may have been altered before reaching us? We know NASA has access to raw photos before anyone in the public sees them. This means that if there is something that should not be revealed, they have full control to edit or even delete certain details before making images public. Some NASA missions have already been suspected of hiding data. The Apollo program itself, which took man to the moon, also has its controversies. And there are those who believe that space missions always reveal more than the public can know. But this information is filtered before it reaches us. Now that you've seen all these contradictions, it's impossible not to ask yourself, what is really going on with these images? Are we being deceived? Or does NASA really have valid justifications for all these edits? This is a question that divides opinions, but one thing is certain. There are many unanswered questions. And as long as these doubts exist, the mystery surrounding Mars will continue to grow. I want to know your opinion on all of this. Do you believe that the images released are completely reliable, or do you think there is something being hidden? Leave a comment with the phrase, "I want to see Mars without filters," if you think NASA should release all the raw footage unedited. Your comment is essential to keep this discussion alive and make this video reach more people. Don't forget to leave a like, because we still have a lot more to discover. And what comes next could be even more surprising. If there's something that everyone imagines when they think about Mars, It's that intense reddish tone, almost desert, which NASA has always shown in its images. But the big question that almost no one asks is this really the color of Mars, or was this hue deliberately exaggerated? What few people know is that the colors of the images sent by the rovers are not simply captured and transmitted to Earth as if they were a photo taken with a cell phone. They go through an editing process, which could drastically alter the way we see the planet. NASA claims this color adjustment is necessary for scientific purposes, to highlight specific details of the Martian soil and atmosphere. But then, the question arises, to what extent is this editing just a technical improvement, and where does possible intentional manipulation begin? After all, if Mars were a little different than we imagine, this could completely change the public's perception of the planet and even affect future exploration and colonization projects. Let's analyze this calmly. Firstly, the images we receive of the rovers are not colored the way we see them on NASA's official websites. They arrive in black and white or in separate layers, and only after a long process of digital reconstruction. An adjustment is that they become those images that we know. This process already takes us to a critical point. Who decides which colors will be applied? Many independent experts claim that Mars may have a sky closer to blue than red, and that the reddish tone in the images is not natural. In some photos that leaked before they were processed, the sky didn't look that different from Earth. In fact, this makes perfect sense if we consider that Mars' atmosphere contains carbon dioxide, fine dust, and suspended particles that reflect sunlight in varying ways, generating a color palette that can be very different from what we are used to seeing. But why would this be hidden? If we think about it, the idea of a red and inhospitable Mars sends a message of isolation and hostility, reinforcing the idea that the planet is an extremely dangerous environment for human life. Now, if Mars were shown in more natural colors, this could have a completely different impact, increasing public interest and encouraging questions about the possibility of life in the past or even in the present. And what really draws attention is that there is evidence that NASA has already applied artificial filters to make Mars redder than it really is. Some missions recorded images that, when compared to raw photos, show a stark difference in the tone of the ground and sky. This has already happened with the rover Spirit, which captured images in which the sky appeared a soft blue tone, similar to that of Earth, but which, after adjustments, became intensely reddish. Other evidence comes from photos captured by Curiosity, where small changes in color reveal that the soil on Mars can have brownish and even greenish tones, something that is never shown on official websites. And it doesn't stop there. A very interesting case happened to the probe Viking 1, launched in 1976, when its first images reached Earth. They showed a clear blue sky, but hours later, the images were replaced by corrected versions where the sky became completely red and the ground even more intense in its reddish hue. This raises a very important point. If there is a scientific justification for these adjustments, why was the change made so quickly and without clear explanation? If we analyze further, we realize that Mars, it doesn't have to be a red desert, as it has always been portrayed. It may have an appearance much more varied, with geological formations that resemble some regions of Earth and even traces of erosion that suggest the presence of liquid water in the past. But to support this narrative of a completely arid and hostile planet, it would be necessary to ensure that he was always portrayed as such. Now, imagine the impact this would have on space exploration. If images of Mars were less red and closer than they actually are, this could raise a series of questions that NASA may not want to answer. Like, for example, did Mars ever have a climate much more similar to Earth's? Is there something on the surface of the planet that needs to be hidden? And the most shocking, could it be that some missions have already found signs of life, but these discoveries were neutralized by image adjustments and filters? And don't think that this only happens with photos. The video broadcasts made by rovers also undergo changes. Some researchers analyzed video sequences recorded on Mars and realized that when color filters are removed, the natural tones of the planet resemble much more like a desert on Earth than the extremely red environment they show us. This means that, over the years, we may have been conditioned to see Mars in a way that does not represent your true reality. Now that you know all this, it's impossible not to ask yourself, what else might be being manipulated before we see? Images of Mars. If NASA has full control over photo processing, what prevents other, more revealing details from being adjusted or even deleted? And I want to know your opinion on this. Do you think NASA really exaggerates color editing to maintain a specific narrative? Or do you believe that the adjustments are just technical? If you think we should see Mars in its true colors, comment below. I want to see real Mars, and share this video with more people because what comes next could be even more surprising. If there is something that instigates the curiosity of millions of people around the world, it is the conspiracy theories about Mars. Since space exploration began, several doubts have arisen about what is really happening on this planet and what could be being hidden from the public. Could it be that Mars was habitable in the past and this information is being suppressed? Could it be that some of the images we see were not even taken in space, but in deserts on Earth? What's more, why do some astronauts and scientists make controversial statements about Mars and then seem to be silenced? Starting with one of the most intriguing points, the possibility that Mars once harbored life, and that this is being hidden. If we analyze the missions sent to the planet, we notice that several of them had a clear objective: look for signs of microscopic life and understand the presence of water in the past. But the data released is, to say the least, contradictory. For decades, NASA has announced discoveries about traces of frozen water, but never confirmed anything concrete about life. However, there are indications that this information may be being filtered. An example of this is the Viking mission, 1976, who carried out experiments to detect biological signals in Martian soil. One of the tests showed positive results for microbial activity, but NASA dismissed this conclusion, stating that it could have just been a chemical reaction unrelated to living organisms. But what really happened? If the evidence was weak, why? Did the person responsible for the experiment, the scientist, Gilbert Levin, spent years insisting that the data did indicate signs of life? Could this be a classic case of suppressed information? And it doesn't stop there. Another controversial theory states that Mars may be much more similar to Earth than we are told, and that it wouldn't be a completely inhospitable desert, as we always hear. If this were true, it would make perfect sense to manipulate images and change colors to make the planet appear less inviting and less suitable for human presence. Now, imagine the impact of such a revelation. If we knew that Mars once had, or still has, conditions for life, global interest in colonization would increase dramatically. And with that, governments and space corporations would lose their monopoly on exploration. Whoever holds the information controls the future, and if there is anything that history shows us, it is that the truth does not always reach the public, as it really is. Another extremely controversial theory suggests that some of the images of Mars we see were taken here on Earth. Does it seem absurd? Well, know that this theory gained even more strength after researchers began comparing some Martian landscapes with terrestrial desert terrain, like those on Earth, Atacama, not Chile, and the Devon Island, Canada. The latter, by the way, is a region used by NASA itself for space mission simulations. Now think with me. If there are places on Earth that look a lot like what they show us on Mars, what would prevent a possible staging? Some images of the Martian surface are so similar to certain terrestrial geological formations that it is difficult to distinguish them. Additionally, Some rocks photographed on Mars appear strangely familiar, as if they had been moved from one place to another, or even organized in a way that doesn't make sense for a natural and untouched environment. And if you think these suspicions only come from independent researchers, you're wrong. Former NASA scientists have made controversial statements, and many of them, after revealing confidential information, began to face discredit, removal from the scientific community, or even censorship. A striking example is John Brandenburg, a physicist with a doctorate from the University of California and former NASA consultant, who claimed that Mars was the scene of an ancient nuclear war. That's right, according to Brandenburg. The composition of Martian soil has high concentrations of xenon-129, an isotope that is found on Earth after nuclear tests. For him, this indicates that Mars may have hosted an advanced civilization that was destroyed by some type of nuclear explosion in the past. This theory has been met with a lot of skepticism by the scientific community. But it raises an interesting question. Why would a renowned scientist risk his credibility to make such an extreme claim? In addition to scientists, astronauts have also made somewhat suspicious statements about Mars and space exploration in general. Himself, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to set foot on the moon, made cryptic comments about the moon of Mars, Phobos, suggesting that there is a mysterious structure there, which appears to be unnatural. He even said that this structure could be an obelisk placed there by someone, which generated even more speculation. If an astronaut with Aldrin's credibility makes that kind of statement, does he know something he can't fully reveal? And this is not an isolated case. Several astronauts who participated in space missions reported seeing unexplainable things. But when they returned to Earth, they either refused to talk more about the subject or started publishing cryptic messages. Is there something going on behind the scenes of space exploration that we don't know about? Are NASA and other space agencies hiding discoveries that could completely change our view of the universe? Now, stop and think. If all these theories are real, what else could be hidden about Mars? If there's a possibility that NASA isn't telling us the whole truth, why so much resistance to releasing unedited images, investigating strange structures, and providing more concrete answers about the possibility of life? The pattern is always the same. When something very out of the ordinary appears on Mars, the official explanation is always vague, leaving many questions unanswered. And now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that NASA really hides information about Mars? Do you think some of these theories make sense, or is it all just speculation? If you want to know even more about the mysteries of Mars, leave a comment here with the phrase, "The truth about Mars needs to be revealed." And tell me which of these theories intrigued you the most. Your comment is essential to keep this topic alive and ensure that this video reaches more people. Don't forget to leave a like, because in the next few minutes, we're going to delve even deeper into this mystery. And what comes now could be even more shocking. NASA insists that all images of Mars are authentic and undergo adjustments only to improve quality and facilitate scientific analysis. According to the agency, space camera sensors capture different spectrums of light, requiring corrections so that we can better interpret the data. The official argument is that there is no manipulation, just standardization to facilitate studies. But how true is this? Many images released show notable discrepancies. In several comparisons, we see that the ground and sky of Mars appear to be altered, gaining more intense reddish tones than in the raw versions. In some original photos, the sky appears grayish-blue, while in edited versions, it becomes a deep red. This change reinforces the idea of an arid and hostile environment. But is it really like that? If the goal is to present Mars as it is, why do we see such extreme variations? Furthermore, when asked about anomalies in images, like strange shadows or suspicious geometric formations, NASA always responds with vague explanations. In most cases, the justification is pareidolia, the phenomenon that makes us see familiar. patterns in random shapes. But to what extent is this just an excuse to avoid deeper investigations? There are records of photos that, after attracting attention on the internet, have been removed, edited, or replaced with less detailed versions. Another intriguing point is NASA's stance on controversial information. The agency claims that its findings are disclosed transparently, but there is evidence that some images disappear or reach the public with cuts and pixelated areas. If there is nothing to hide, why do certain images disappear or are altered? This practice is nothing new. During the Apollo missions, astronauts reported strange events and audio recordings were cut out. Is the same happening with Mars? Space exploration involves political, economic, and strategic interests. NASA receives billions of dollars for its missions, but are all discoveries really shared with the public? Some information can have profound impacts and, if revealed, could completely change our perception of space and life beyond Earth. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you trust NASA, or do you think there is something being hidden? Comment below. We want the whole truth about Mars. And don't forget to leave a like. What we reveal next may be even more surprising. Now that we have analyzed all the facts, the inevitable question arises: have we been fooled this whole time? For years, NASA has shown us a barren, inhospitable Mars, completely devoid of any possibility of life. But if we look at the evidence, the contradictions are many. We saw images that were altered, colors manipulated, unexplained anomalies, statements from scientists and astronauts silenced, and a very clear pattern of information carefully filtered before reaching the public. This leads us to an even bigger dilemma. What else could be being hidden? The official narrative has always been that Mars is an extremely hostile planet, with freezing temperatures, deadly radiation, and an atmosphere too thin to support any form of life as we know it. However, independent studies suggest that the planet may have been much more like Earth in the past, perhaps even with oceans, vegetation, and conditions favorable to life. If this is true, where did this information go? Have we already found signs of extraterrestrial life and simply not been informed? If we analyze space exploration missions, we will see that all discoveries seem to come in a trickle. Whenever something interesting appears, like traces of water or organic molecules in the soil, information is disclosed vaguely, without much fanfare, and quickly forgotten. For years, NASA has promised new revelations about Mars, but never delivered anything really concrete. Could this be a game to keep the public interested while the truth remains hidden? And we cannot ignore the images that raise even more questions. We compared several photos of Mars and saw stark differences between the raw and edited versions. Blue skies transformed into intense reds, ground details softened, strange objects disappearing from one image to the next. What do these changes really mean? The explanation that these are just technical adjustments, not completely convincing. Science can justify certain corrections, but why so many inconsistencies? Now connect the dots. If there are signs that Mars may be different from what we are being told, if there are testimonies from scientists questioning the official information, if there are records of astronauts reporting strange experiences, and if there is a clear effort to discredit anyone who challenges the official version, isn't that at least suspicious? And there is one more detail that cannot be ignored. If NASA really had made extraordinary discoveries, such as evidence of microbial life or signs of an ancient civilization, would it immediately reveal this to the public? Or would this type of information be classified as confidential, protected by governmental, corporate, or even geopolitical interests? Discovering that Mars may once have been habitable, or that its appearance was intentionally distorted, would completely change the way humanity views space and our place in the universe. This kind of discovery would shake power structures, force governments and institutions to admit that much of what we have been told may not be exactly the truth. Think about it. Whoever controls the information controls the narrative. If there's anything we've learned throughout history, it's that big secrets are only revealed when they can no longer be hidden. And when we talk about Mars, there is more and more evidence that reality may be much more complex than we are told. If we go beyond the images released, beyond the superficial justifications, and start to look between the lines, we will see a clear pattern of manipulation, concealment, and omission of data. And now, I want to hear from you. After everything we've shown you, do you still believe we're seeing the real version of Mars? Or do you think there is something much bigger behind this narrative? Leave your comment with the phrase, "The truth about Mars needs to be revealed," if you believe there is information being withheld. Your comment is essential to boost this debate and ensure that more people know these facts. Don't forget to leave a like, because what we're going to reveal next could change everything you think about space, and maybe even about the destiny of humanity itself. Now that we've analyzed everything, it's impossible to ignore the evidence. Are images of Mars really what they tell us? Or are we being manipulated to only see what they want us to see? From inconsistencies in coloring to the possibility that certain findings were filtered before reaching the public, the amount of information that appears to be strategically controlled raises many questions. Why are there so many differences? Between raw and edited photos, why were so many missions abruptly halted without convincing explanations? What's really on the surface of Mars that NASA would rather we not see? What we discuss here is not baseless theory, but rather facts based on image comparisons, statements by scientists, independent analyses, and repeating patterns of behavior. If NASA has nothing to hide, why is there so much resistance to admitting that there may be something more? The agency argues that the adjustments to the images are for scientific purposes only. But when we put the versions side by side, the differences are stark. If these edits are made only to facilitate study, why are they always adjusted to reinforce the image of a barren, dead, and hostile planet? Does this make sense to you? And the issue goes far beyond colors. There are edits to the images. What else could be being changed? We have already had cases of anomalies that disappeared from one version to another. Strange objects that appeared in one photo and disappeared in the next. Is this just processing error, or is there intentional filtering? Think about the impact of a discovery like this. If Mars was habitable in the past, or if there was already concrete evidence that life existed there, this information would completely change our relationship with space exploration. Could political and economic interests behind space agencies be influencing the narrative? What if this is all part of something much bigger? Many theorists believe that the truth about Mars is not only being hidden, but that there is an active effort to shape our perception of space. When you start to connect the dots, you realize there is a clear pattern of silencing of information, selective disclosure of data, and a well-controlled narrative so that most people do not ask questions. But here, on this channel, we question everything. We do not accept ready-made answers, we investigate, compare, and seek to understand what may really be happening behind the scenes of space exploration. And that's why I want to know your opinion. Do you believe NASA is showing us the truth about Mars? Or do you think there is major manipulation going on behind the scenes? Comment below. The truth about Mars needs to be revealed. If you think there is something much bigger behind it all, your comment is essential to make this video reach more people and strengthen this community that seeks the truth. I know that you've made it this far, so that means this video really impacted you and made you think differently about everything they tell us about Mars. Now, answer me. Do you think NASA really reveals the whole truth, or is there something much bigger being hidden? If you believe the truth needs to be exposed, subscribe to the channel now, because here we do not accept the official version without question. Here we investigate, analyze, and seek answers to the mysteries that no one wants you to discover. And if you watched until the end, I want to know that you are part of this community that seeks the truth. Comment below, real Mars or staged Mars? So I know that you've been with me this far and that you also want more revelations about what may be being hidden about space. Your comment is very important because helps this video reach more people who need to know this information now that you've seen how information about Mars can be manipulated. Imagine what could be being hidden about the Moon. What if there is evidence that our natural satellite was once inhabited? Mysterious structures, anomalies in official photos, and reports from astronauts indicate that the Moon may hold secrets that have never been revealed to the public. In the next video, we will analyze images and documents that suggest the existence of enigmatic constructions on the lunar surface. What did NASA actually find when it got there? And why, after so many missions in the past, do we never return? The answers to these questions could completely change our view of space exploration. I'll wait for you in the next video.